How's it going? My name's Ray, I'm with Team S.T.E.A.M, and today I'm out behind Flash Industrial Painting getting ready to sandblast this chassis and do the first of quite a few steps of bringing this 2001 Kenworth W900 back to life. And that fact alone may leave you thinking, you know, I'll just sit this one out, I already know how this goes down. However, if you watch those other two videos, you would know that the first one goes down like they all go down, and the second one was more of a detailed explanation of some of the body work. Well, in this video, I'm going to go into the details of some of the other aspects of putting a truck like this under the knife. Aspects like some of the masking. And also, I plan on leaving the camera out while I sandblast this one. So if you're the type of person that takes an interest in the more detail-oriented side of what it takes exactly to get a truck like this across the finish line, we've got some answers for you. All right, it's go time. Alright, so I got the other side done as well, and now that my equipment's all put away and everything's ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and get this guy pulled back inside. As you can see, it's all back to the way it was in the factory before they put that crappy powder coating on it. All bare metal, all ready for our next steps. Alright, well, now I got the truck inside, and when the boys get here in a few minutes, we're going to start taking it apart, taking off some of these things. We're going to take off the exhaust and, you know, the handles here and the air cleaners and just some other stuff, and the visor and a few other things. And then before we do any masking, once again, we're going to go ahead and wipe this whole truck down with thinner. What you see here behind me is the clear coat coming off of the truck. And this wasn't the fault of any particular paint shop or anything. This is a factory paint job. And this happens a lot, especially when the paint jobs get between 15 and about 22 years old. Anywhere in that region, the paint really starts, the clear coat really starts coming off of them. And that's because, and paint shops do this too, not enough coats were applied. Not enough mil thickness of clear coat was applied. So the sun shines through the clear coat. Eventually, there's not enough clear to keep the UV completely out, and the UV bakes the base coat underneath and kind of powderizes it. And when that happens, the clear coat loses its adhesion and comes off. And speaking of defective or ill-applied paint coming up, check this out. Just comes right off. We're getting stuff taken off. The next thing we'll do is we'll wipe it down with thinner. Got it? And so at this point, now that we've got it all wiped down with thinner, I'm going to show you how we mask a back window. And this exact procedure pertains to most things that we mask on a truck. Okay, now this is vinyl tape, or commonly known as fine line tape. And you can see it's just between the rubber and the painted surface. And then once I get up here on the straightaway, I'll stretch it out here a foot or so, and I'll tack it right where I need it, every few inches. Then I'll lightly rub it once, and then I'll rub it hard once. Now when you're stretching your vinyl tape, you don't want to stretch it out too hard. You want to stretch it out just enough to where you know it's going to be straight across the thing you're trying to mask. And now that I've come all the way back up around this window, I've ended it the same way I began it, off onto this. You don't want to try and put it over here and leave it right next to that edge. There's just no sense in it. Just leave it back up here where you can easily grab it and unmask the entire window later. You want to put the paper well up onto your tape, about halfway across it. about halfway across the thickness of your vinyl tape. That way you're not chancing not masking it, and you're not getting it too close to the edge of your vinyl tape. It doesn't need to be right up on the edge of your vinyl tape. About halfway across always works for me. And now what you'll do is you'll hold the paper down nice and flat the way it's going to be, and you'll go ahead and scribe this edge with your fingernail. And then you scribe it. Just like that with your fingernail. All the way around the corner. You see what it's left behind? Then you pull that out away from there, and you cut it with a razor blade. So you'll hold it out and you'll cut it right on that line. And here's what you have left behind. So on this other side, let's just say that that molding wasn't there. You just scribe right to the edge of your rubber, or right to the edge of the thing you're masking. Right to the very edge of it. Now you don't want to cut it on that line because then you're going to have the paper covering up everything and you won't be able to tape anything down. But what you want to do is eyeball out 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch inside of that line and cut a line next to it. Just like that. And it looks much the same as the other side. I've got plenty to tape to. And 3/4 inch tape will easily span that area, and I won't have to do 2 layers of it. And then the other size we use a lot of is 1.5 inches, which is exactly twice as wide. And so what we'll do here is I'll stretch out my 3/4 inch masking tape and tape this paper to the window rubber. I'll show you more of what I would consider the beginner method, and I'll just tack the one end so it's all held in place. Then we can just tape the whole thing. Just take a little piece of tape, hold it down, make sure you're about halfway across your vinyl. So I've got it tacked in place, as you can see, about halfway across the vinyl. Then you want to stretch it down around the side. You don't have to pull on this tape hard, it's just paper tape, you'll just rip it in two if you do. But you want it to be on there stiff enough, especially when you're going around an outside corner like this. Staying about halfway across the vinyl tape. And then you'll want to gently fold it over onto your paper, tap it down, and then rub it. And that's how a finished corner will look. There's a few wrinkles in it. None of that's going to hurt anything. Then you'll pull this tape down and do your straight section. Tapping it down as I go. Going down around the corner. We'll stop down here because I don't have any of this taped yet. I'm going to have to use wider tape on this particular application. And like I said, they're all going to be different. You have to be a problem solver if you're going to be a good masker. Now I can tell just by eyeballing it that I can get away with 1.5 inch tape. So again, we're starting about halfway across the vinyl, halfway across the thickness of the vinyl. And we're going to wrap it around this corner. We're going to ignore this part right here. This inside part, we're going to let it just flay out as much as it needs to. We just want this to be tight. So we'll wrap around this corner. And then we'll make our way down the stretch of it, the long stretch of it. Tack it every few inches. Drag your finger across it lightly, and then once hard. And then we'll do the other side the same way. Tack it every few inches, or run your finger across it solid around this corner. Either one works. And as you can see, what you're left with is just a big, it's just sticking straight out. Look at that. So what you'll do is you will gently rake across it, cup your hand if you need to, pull it all across there, gently. And you can see we've initially tacked it in place. We'll do the same thing over here. We'll just rake this back, gently tap it in place, as you can see. Then you run your fingers across that a little bit more firmly. Make sure those wrinkles are good and pressed down. And now we've got this window completely masked up. And as you can see here, Brent's doing much the same thing. He's going to have to probably run 6-inch paper along the bottom. As you can see, he's put his vinyl tape on here, getting this ready. He's got his vinyl tape on this little window, getting it ready. A lot of times you'll want to do that. You'll want to go ahead and put your vinyl tape on a whole surface first. If you have multiple things on one section you're working on, you know, it's all about how comfortable you are, but a lot of times that's the way we'll do it. We'll just vinyl everything up first and then get out the other implements and get everything else masked up with paper from there. As you can see here, Kittrick's going about it a different way. He's used 2 pieces of 12-inch rather than an 18 and a 6. It doesn't really matter. It all works out the same. He's got it cut at the bottom and he's getting ready to tape to his vinyl. As you can see, he's got vinyl right there along the bottom. Same way with this grill. We'll run vinyl along this line. Once the vinyl's all the way around the front of the grill, we'll go ahead and run paper all the way around the front of the grill, and we'll leave it hanging. And once it's hung all the way around the front of the grill, then we'll close the hood, and then we'll close up the paper. We'll fold it up almost like a Christmas present, and then we'll tape paper either under it, depending on who's doing the masking. We all do it a little bit different. Either under it or just over it, we'll tape paper across the front. And those are some general masking tips for some of the things that you'll find most common, at least on semis, but it also applies to cars or about anything else that you're painting. A lot of these rubber windowsills are very much the same. All right, the masking's all done. It's all been wiped down with thinner. Now we're gonna get down to some of these other steps. So I'm not gonna sand these rivets or do any of that just yet. I'm gonna sand right where the dents are, fix all the dents, then we'll sand the rivets on the back. And at this point, as you can see, I've picked out all the areas where there's dents and dings, and I've gone ahead and sanded them. So you can see how much of the back of this cab hasn't been sanded at all. So when I put bodywork on there and then sand that bodywork down, it's gonna look at a glance like I just put bodywork over shiny, unprepped paint, because you're just gonna see shiny, unprepped paint right next to bodywork. But as you can see beforehand, I've actually sanded and prepped all of these areas. As you can tell, you see how dull that paint is? Here and all the way up the side, clear to the top, up here, all around all these rivets. That's because I had the boys go ahead and get those rivets sanded. So at this point, I've got the initial body work all done, and now all I need to do on the back here is glaze it. And here's what it looks like with its first coat of glazing applied, but not sanded yet. As you can see, bodywork without glazing, bodywork with glazing. And here's what that glazed section looks like after it's sanded. And here's what the front of the truck looks like after I've put my glazing on and sanded it. See all those rock tips? Those are all filled now. This is after the glazing's been applied and sanded. And this is after the glazing's been applied but not yet sanded. All right, got all the body work done, got all the glazing done, got everything sanded, got everything scratched. Well, everything that applies to today's agenda anyway. Now it's time to get some primer on this guy. We got the fenders all sanded. Now it's time to get some primer on them. I went ahead and got it primed in basically the same color of gray that it was, only this isn't an epoxy primer that is a sanding primer. This is a different epoxy primer. And now I'm going to go ahead and get some blue on. So here it is the next morning. The fenders are all good and cured out. I'm going to go ahead and show you this morning how to segregate your fenders from your truck. Now, I understand that if you have like a Peterbilt 379 where the fenders are completely separate from the hood, that's an easy thing to segregate. That line's already there. It's a very easy decision to make as to where to put that line because it's already on the truck for you. But with almost any other type of hood or any kind of fiberglass hood, you're going to have to make up your mind as to where to put that line between your fender and your hood. And I'm going to show you how I do it here this morning. Okay, so I've got my vinyl tape, or fine line tape as it's called more often than not. And the way that I do it is once I get that location selected where I'm going to have that stripe, the whole time I have my hand planted against the side of the hood. See that? And I have the tape in my hand in a certain location. Now I don't intend to change that at all. I don't intend to change the location of the tape in my hand. I don't want to go this way with it or this way with it. I want to keep it exactly at this angle. I don't want to tip it this way or this way. I want to keep it exactly the way it is, and I want to keep it planted against the hood. As you can see, we're straight down here now. And now I want to go ahead and drag my hand against the hood, keeping the tape in the exact same spot all the way around. I don't want to go too far up the hood. I just want to, and as you can see, I'm still touching I'm totally touching. I'm dragging my hand against the hood, and I'm not moving the tape's location at all. I'm keeping everything steady. And I'm just dragging it along the hood. All the way to the front here. And as you can see, that's left a nice, even line with no bobbles in it all the way up. All the way up to here. Now on a Kenworth, this tends to dip in just a little bit and then back out here just a little bit. So you got to kind of honor that. So the way I do it is I hold the tape out here. I make sure that it's still all completely straight. Then I'll pick my location and gently sink my finger down into it. Then I'll pull my finger toward me a little bit to make that corner so I don't make a really sharp corner right here where this is not a sharp corner. I want it to be about the same transition. And then I want to gently place it into this corner right here. So now, as you can see, that's no longer a straight stripe. As you can see, it bends a little bit right there at that corner. Well, so does the fender. So you want it to kind of go along with that same body line. And now at this point, you can choose whether or not you want to come straight out with it, or you want to follow the curvature of the rest of the fender. I always follow the curvature of the rest of the fender. I think it looks a little classier and it doesn't look quite as lazy. It's just running it straight out. So I'm gonna round this corner and then head down the rest of the fender. And again, I want to plant my finger. And now this one, I want this line to be parallel with the side of the headlight. So I want this to be the same thickness all the way down. Then I want to go ahead and do this transition because this comes straight down and then comes down this way a little bit. And I want to follow the basic contour of the fender. So we'll do that little smooth transition. We'll make it as smooth as we can without making it look like a connect the dots or a constellation. And then we'll lay that out just like that. Tap it down with our finger, very gently. Run your finger over it lightly. You run your finger over it heavy. Now when you go to do your other fender on the other side, it's the same procedure, except for you need to pay attention to your dimensions. How far from, say, this bolt right here is my stripe? How far is it? I don't want to have a 1/4 inch between this bolt and the stripe on this side and a 1/2 inch on the other side. So you want to pay attention to that. How close is it to the bolt here? And how close is it to the grill or the headlight over here? You don't want it 1 inch from the headlight over here and only a 1/2 inch from the headlight over there. You want to make sure those dimensions remain the same. And you'll notice when you go to mask that there's many different ways of going about it. For instance, over here, we've got Kittrick who's using paper that already has tape on it. He's starting with a 10-inch piece or a 12-inch piece of paper, and it already has tape on it. He's getting it straight off the masking machine that way. Whereas over here, Brent started with the same size, but what he does is he doesn't hook the tape up on the masking machine. He just rolls out straight paper, puts it on here, tacks it in place with a piece of tape, and then tapes in between the seam. And both are perfectly acceptable. Whenever these guys mask for me, one side is always masked completely different than the other side, and one's just as good as the other. So there's no one way of doing this, but there are many ways that will get the job done. And here's what it looks like completely finished on this side, all in white. And on this side, all in brown and green. Different methods. They both work just the same. As you can see, I've got two different masking machines. I've got one on this side, and then I've got one on the other side that has different colors of masking paper, although they're all about the same quality. And one will do just as well as the other. All right, well, it's all sanded down. Everything that needed to be sanded is sanded. Everything that needed to be scratched is scratched. Any little touch-up that needed to be done with the bodywork is done. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and prime the chassis in black, prime the rest of the truck in white, paint the chassis in black, paint the truck in white, and then come back here and with very light pressure, very carefully and meticulously, reshoot the chassis again in black. Now it's time to go ahead and paint the truck. Well, here it is, bright and early the next morning. Boys will be here before too long. And normally on a truck like this, you know, the very first thing I'll do is unmask these fenders or the stripe if it has one. But on this truck, the very first thing I did was this. Now on this particular truck, I went ahead and put 18-inch masking paper all the way across the back and down the sides, because these trucks that I've been doing for this same outfit all go down about the same way. I'll shoot the chassis in black, the cab in white, reshoot the chassis in black again in very light pressure, and then go home. But when I do that, and I shoot the white gets down onto this cab mount, and I can't come back and reshoot with light pressure the cab mount without getting overspray up onto the white, so I don't. I just leave it. Then the next morning I put masking paper across the back, and I go ahead and reshoot that cab mount. So, and these lines and some of the other things that might have gotten white overspray on that I didn't feel like trying to take the chance of getting in there and reshooting in black with this fresh white paint job above it. This morning, though, I had to mask all the way down the sides because I went ahead and shot these exhaust elbows, which I almost never do on a truck, but this one on this side was really rusty. And rather than have it sitting in the auction house with a really rusty elbow, I just thought it would look better with just some shiny black elbows. So this one went down a little bit different than the others, but nonetheless, we're ready to go ahead and unmask these fenders. Well, all right, that went pretty well. And that is, as far as I'm concerned anyway, a green light to get this guy unmasked, put back together, sent out the door. Let's get to it. Well, all right, that wasn't so bad, was it? Let's go ahead and walk around this guy and have a look. All right, here we have a 2001 Kenworth W900. It showed up, it had paint, clear coat coming off the hood and off the roof. Had the paint coming off the fenders in numerous spots, had some cracks in the fenders. The paint was coming off the doors, was mostly off of the doors. The back was completely full of dents like all these trucks are. As you can see, there's not a single dent in it, not a dent or ding or anything in it. It looks almost brand new. Sandblasted the chassis, took it to bare metal, primed and painted it. Including the details. Got good shine on it. This truck is joining many others, as many as 12 or 15 others, that are going to an auction this next June. The first 2 or 3 I did for these guys already went to an auction in October. And the next auction they're going to take a bunch of them to is in June. So we've got quite a few of these we got to get through between now and then. Well, all right, that about does it for this project. The next project's pulling up in the driveway this afternoon or tomorrow. Hey, if you like this video, go ahead and take the time to hit the like button, because that's going to help me grow this channel. And if you want a more detailed look at what goes on around here, come on over to Facebook and see me at Flash Industrial Painting. If you want to see more videos like this, or like domestic auto body or art or gardening or any of the many things we do around here, you might as well go ahead and subscribe, because, you know, we always got something going on. We'll see you guys around.